Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Rachel. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, thank you so much for coming back. I am going to do another hypothetical situation video today. I did the adverse of this video recently where I talked about if I had to declutter one palette from 10 indie brands, what would that palette be? I can link that video down below if you missed it, but I'm gonna do if I had to keep one palette from each of these 10 indie brands. Which palette would I keep? Now, I'm not necessarily picking my absolute favorite palette from the brand. And some of these brands, I have several favorites, and it was really hard to pick. But I kind of curated almost like a perfect eyeshadow collection with these 10 palettes. Maybe a neutral palette, maybe a warm palette, maybe a colorful palette, maybe a this, maybe a that, so that I would have a little bit of everything if I only kept these 10 palettes. Listen, I'm not gonna only just keep these 10 palettes. All right. I want to keep all of the palettes from these brands that I own, obviously, but I'm going to let you know why I really enjoy these palettes, why they're unique in my collection, why I feel like I would want to keep them. I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments as I'm going through these. Let me know if you would also keep them. Let me know if you have these palettes, if you want these palettes. What palettes from these brands would you want to keep? I will link the palettes that are available down below in the description box, and everything that is on my face will also be in the description box. Let's do it. All right, I'm gonna do the same 10 brands that I did in my last video, and I'm just gonna go in alphabetical order. So I'm gonna start with Blend Bunny. And if you've been here before, you probably already know what palette I would want to keep, and that is the Blends palette. This was the very first palette I ever got from the brand. I won it in a giveaway from Millie, who is known as Bad to the Brow here on YouTube. I won it in a giveaway on her channel a long time ago when I first started my channel, and it was my introduction to Blend Bunny Cosmetics. The Blends palette is an all matte rainbow palette, and the quality of Blend Bunny mattes is absolutely phenomenal. Buildable, blendable, pigmented, but not overly pigmented. You can sheer them out, you can build them up. I mean, incredible. And this is my go-to palette that I reach into when I want a matte shadow that's not available in another palette that I may be using. I really enjoy dipping into this, and I bring this with me every single time I go to a dance competition. I am a professional dancer, and every single time I travel, I do bring this palette with me just because I can build out my looks with it very easily. Like I said, reach into it if I need a shadow that's missing from another palette. It is just my go-to matte rainbow palette. And if you're looking for one of those, 100% would recommend for sure. So I would definitely want to keep this in my collection for those reasons. The next brand is Cosmic Beauty. I really enjoy their formulas, and they're at a really great price point. So I wanted to mention one palette I would keep from them. I am a neutral lover. If you've been here before, you know that. I love neutrals. I prefer neutrals. I wear neutrals more often than not, like in my everyday life. And this would be an absolutely essential neutral palette that I would want to keep. And this is the Nude Trolls palette. They have really good packaging, really nice, like good quality cardboard packaging. And this is an all-encompassing, gorgeous neutral palette that you can get, of course, just like standard brown neutral looks out of, but there are some green leaning shades, some mustard leaning shades, and this row on the bottom, I created a really pretty purple look with. So it is a neutrals plus more palette, in my opinion. The mattes from Cosmic Beauty are very blendable, not as pigmented as, say, a Blend Bunny, but very silky soft, easy to work with. The shimmers, I think, are really beautiful. Most of the shimmers in their palettes are standard shimmers. They have that really smooth application, and they do stick in usually one iridescent shade, which they did up here. It's an iridescent duochrome, and then they also put in a multichrome as well. And they're just like a couple of pops of fun shimmer. I think that is why it keeps the price point down, and I personally love a standard shimmer most of the time, and I do enjoy having that option of a multichrome and that option of an iridescent shade, but I don't need a palette full of those types of shimmers personally. And especially for a neutral palette, this is like an everyday palette for me, but I could also deepen it up, make it smoky if I wanted to. It's a go-to neutral palette for me that I would absolutely want to keep for sure. The next brand is Dede'Signature, and this palette that I'm going to mention is not my favorite palette from the brand. It would be a palette I would want to keep because it's full of jewel tones, so if I want to reach into jewel tones, I can, and I also think the quality of this palette is one of their best quality palettes, and that is the Fearless Holiday palette. The packaging is very good quality, very sturdy. One of my favorite packagings they've ever done. And this is, like I said, full of jewel tones. So fun. If you are a color lover or a neutral lover, I feel like you could really get along with this because the colors are just like not bright neons, but just so stunning. And this is a holiday palette, but I do feel like it's kind of fall and winter themed. I think that's originally what it was. It was their holiday launch last year. The quality of these shadows is, like I just said, one of their best quality shadows. Their shimmers are ultra smooth and sparkly. The mattes are good. I don't feel like they're my favorite mattes of all the brands that I enjoy, but still a really good quality matte. I also would say, and I don't even know if this is available anymore. I have a feeling it's not. No, it's not. That's a bummer. I was gonna say this would be good for someone that wants more mid-tone to deep mattes because there really is only that one pop of like a lighter matte, but anyway. Yeah, really good quality palette. I enjoy this jewel tone color story if I'm feeling the jewel tones. My favorite palette from the brand is the Ultimate Cappuccino palette, but it is a neutral palette and I did include already a neutral palette. I have some other neutral leaning palettes coming up. And this one is just unique and fun, great quality. It's a keeper. So for Fantasy Cosmetica, I would keep the Fighter palette. This is another neutral palette, but this is like a smaller packable neutral palette. Fantasy Cosmetica is a fantasy-based indie brand, and so they do different characters in like gaming and stuff like that. So love the packaging, love the theming. This color story is, like I said, pretty neutral leaning, but I do feel like there's different undertones in such a small, compact format. They do a great job with their 9 pans, making them versatile, making it so that you can create different looks, several different looks in such a small format. We have some more like blue leaning shades. We have some really like fiery warm leaning shades. We have a mustard, we have a dark brown, and then we have this kind of like night sky shade. Really stunning. I think, again, if you like color or neutrals, you could really get along with this. And their shimmers are, if you are looking for like very shiny, very bright, very eye-catching shimmers, they have an incredible shimmer formula. And the mattes are good too. The mattes are good too, but their shimmers are definitely where they shine. But yeah, would definitely keep this as one of my favorite palettes. One of my first palettes I bought from them before I started receiving PR. I would love to just have this to be able to travel with and pack in a makeup bag. The next brand is Glamlite. This was kind of a harder brand for me to pick. There are so many palettes from Glamlite that I really enjoy in my collection, but I think, again, if I'm thinking of like curating a collection, this palette is definitely one that I would want to keep. This is the Rick and Morty palette. I don't know anything about Rick and Morty. I've never seen Rick and Morty, but I will say the actual packaging is so luxurious, like so well done. Raised elements, there's foiling. It's incredible. And I always love the mirror with this. I still don't really know what it means, but I think it's hilarious. And this palette, I want to keep because of those neon tones, both in the mattes and the shimmers. This is one of their best quality palettes, in my opinion. I do feel like with Glamlite, their palettes, quality kind of changes from palette to palette. Sometimes I feel like the quality is great. Sometimes I feel like it's not so great. Sometimes it's in between. So this is a very good quality palette, and I would definitely want to reach into this, especially for these matte neons. Very unique. Don't really have too many of those in the palettes that I've kept. And the shimmers are like ultra shiny, ultra like smooth and sparkly. I do love the Glamlite shimmers when they do it right. Some of my favorites. And so I would want to keep this just for like some fun pops. Gourmande Girls is the next brand we're going to talk about, and it was between this one and Mocha Moment, because the Mocha Moment is their latest palette. At the moment of filming, the latest palette they've released, and I absolutely love that palette. I've loved the looks I've created out of it. But I decided to keep the Peach Perfect palette. I love a warm peachy look, and I love greens. So this has a little bit of both. I feel like when they do these palettes with the larger pans, their formulas are just so good. And also the Mocha Moment palette was the same format. Yeah, really love the matte heavy layout. I love a matte heavy palette. And I also love the depth from light to deep with a gradient in the mattes. Super important to me. The shimmers from Gourmande Girls are really pretty, and I do feel like they have several different like types of shimmers that they put in their palettes. They have like a standard shimmer. They also in this have a multi-chrome. This one is a multi-chrome. It's so beautiful. And they actually have a satin shade, which I don't feel like they do very often in their palettes. But one thing I do appreciate with this palette is they don't have any of their chunky textured shimmers that they tend to have in a lot of their palettes. I just don't like a chunky textured shimmer. It's just not my thing. And all of the shimmers in this are super smooth, super shiny. And then we have that addition of a satin shade, which is really fun. A great palette, very much in line with the color story that I like. And so I would keep this one. Lethal Cosmetics is the next brand I'm going to talk about, and they have quite a few different collaborations that they've done recently. And this collaboration that they did with Avatar, The Last Airbender, I felt like was top notch, the best eyeshadows that I've personally tried from the brand. And the one that I would keep is the one in Fire, which is the warm, fiery palette. I love warm tones, and this would be such a really good palette to keep. Again, smaller, compact. If I want to create a fiery, warm look, I can keep it more neutral. I can add in some like pops of red. I can bring it more golden. I can bring it more champagne. There's just so many possibilities within this 9-pan palette. And honestly, most of all, I would keep this because the quality is just incredible. Just incredible. Mattes, pigmented, blendable, shimmers, super shiny, super smooth, super eye-catching, and I just love a warm tone palette. I do believe that they gave me a discount code. It's not affiliated, but I think you can use it through September. I don't know. I'll put it up on the screen and I will put the information down in the description box. I know that it does not include collaboration items or bundles, but if there are any single items that you are looking for, I think you can use the code. I will put that information down in the description box, but yeah. I was very impressed with this collection, and I just love this one in particular just because the color story calls to me. Nomad Cosmetics is a brand that I have so many palettes from, and I enjoy so many of them. I do feel like their quality has just continued to improve over time, but I will have to say, for the sake of nostalgia, for the sake of the color story, the feeling, the theming, I would keep the Haunted Europe palette. It remains my favorite palette from the brand. It's the very first palette I ever bought from the brand. It was kind of one of the first experiences I had with indie makeup in general. I remember receiving this and being blown away by the presentation, by the packaging and everything. They are a destination-based indie brand, so they do different collections based on different destinations around the world. This color story is so grungy, it's neutral, it's got muted pops of color, it's warm, it's cool. It is one of my favorite color stories in my collection. Every time I look at this, it makes me so happy. I will say this is quite an old palette, so I don't feel like the quality of this is the best. I don't feel like it matches up to the quality of the palettes they're releasing now, but I still think the quality is good. Like, I don't think it's bad quality, but the mattes are kind of not as pigmented. The shimmers are not as shiny, not as like one swipe opaque. There is an iridescent duochrome up here that I do feel like is a little powdery. Kind of wish it was a little creamier, but I mean, overall, this just holds a special place in my heart in general. And I love this color story. I think that they are releasing this in a newer formula for spooky season. They had talked about it a long time ago. They had hinted at it. I'm just speculating. I don't know this for sure, but if they do, I'm going to buy it because I definitely want this in their newer quality. That would be amazing. One day, if I ever create merch, I'm going to have some sort of like, I'm not a blue girl merch because you know that's one of my most said lines ever. But with that being said, for Oden's Eye, I would keep the Christmas Eve palette. This is an absolutely beautiful, unique blue palette, and it's not completely blue. There are definitely pops of other colors in here, but I would say about, a third to a half of the palette is blue. This palette, I remember I was not going to buy it, and then I saw some creators create looks with it, and then I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I'm buying it because the looks were just insane. The shimmers are so multi-dimensional, a lot of shifty shimmers. The mattes from Oden's Eye are really good, and I definitely feel like you can create some neutral looks as well that are a little more like grungy mustard leaning. Again, right up my alley. I think this palette is so incredibly unique, and all the looks that I've created from it, I've really enjoyed. And even though I'm not a blue lover per se, there's something about this palette that just, it tickles or itches something in my brain. I don't know, I love it. I love it, and of course, because it's been discontinued, I can never buy it again, so you know I would be keeping it. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about Unearthly Cosmetics, one of my favorite brands, incredible eyeshadow formula, and another brand that I have so many palettes from, But I would have to say, if I had to keep just one, I would keep the original Fall Magic. She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment, okay?
She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment.
Truly one of my favorite palettes in my collection. The color story is neutral, but like muted pops of color, an incredible like fall leaf themed, in my mind, color story. The mattes are really nice, a little softer than their usual matte formula, a little softer, a little more buildable, but still very good. I love the selection of mattes that are offered. The shimmers in this are so beautiful, especially for the time when this was released. The shimmers were just like jaw-dropping, very smooth, very shiny. There are two multi-chromes. There is one that's kind of like leaning satin, a little more of a subtle shimmer, which I love in a neutral shimmer. And then we have two that are a little more sparkly over here. Just an iconic palette to me, a little piece of history. Of course, you cannot get it because it's so old. And I really enjoy this palette, would definitely want to keep it for sure. All right, and that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment down below letting me know your thoughts either on any of these palettes I talked about, or let me know what palettes you would keep from any of these brands. I would love to know, and I will see you soon in another video. Bye.